you are a Christian Zionist.
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of. So, I want this episode is going to be because
I know.
after all the things we talked about, I came up with what I think based on everything.
Okay.
And yeah, I had some time to think about it.
All right.
And you have had a entire pastor life to think about it.
Okay.
So you are Christian Zionist. So
Okay.
why?
Okay. Well, first of all right. I'm a little leery of the term Christian Zionist.
Okay.
Okay. And so because of this, I think in its best usage, okay, the best usage of the term,
Okay.
you're talking about Christians that believe that God has promised the Jewish people the land. Okay. All right. And therefore that there is a purpose that God has for them in entering that land. All right.
Okay.
I think at its worst, it becomes tied to this like political, heavy right-wing ideology,
Right.
which states that Christians must support the secular state of Israel in whatever it does, in its actions, in its decision-making, and that we have to stand, or that people have to stand with secular, governmental state of Israel.
So do you want to talk about that for a second? On what people get confused about?
Yeah, I think for me, when I think of being like that, God has a promise for the people of Israel and the land. Okay,
Yeah.
That I think about that through really more of a. I mean, it's obviously theological and religious, but there also has to be a practical part of it where at some point they receive the land, right?
Right.
And therefore that when they receive the land and maybe God did step in the 1940s and create this to happen, okay? But what I'm also saying is we don't have to support the actions of a secular government or country
because of our religious beliefs.
Just because of religious beliefs. Like the reality is that the secular state of Israel have done things like every other country in the world has that are unethical.
So how does this play out in church?
I think in church, you'll hear the phrase like stand with Israel,
Right.
pray for Israel. And I think immediately it goes to or I won't say immediately, for a lot of people, it moves immediately to the thought of this. I said immediately, but anyway, for a lot of people, it moves to the thought of we must pray, we must stand with the secular state of Israel.
Mm.
And I think that's probably taking it too far. I think
for church,
for Christians, yeah.
Okay.
I think we should say yes. We are standing with God's people. We're standing with the ones that He has chosen. That He has a future plan for them. But it doesn't mean that I am standing in support of everything that happens.
Right.
Right. So like even in the present situation that's going on, I can obviously stand there. I can stand there and go, what Hamas did to Israel was terrorism. It was terrible,
right?
And we condemn it
without anything religious,
right?
Because
it would be terrorism against any other group of people,
yes,
right.
And
so it's just terrorism. So
or any other country,
yeah,
yes.
So I label it as that, and because Hamas is the governing force within Gaza, the country of Israel has the right to respond.
Right. They started a war. So
they have a right to do that.
Right.
Now, in war, civilians die. There are civilian casualties, and it's terrible. And there's a lot of unethical things that happen. But I will always say that a country has a right to defend herself against terrorist attacks.
Right.
And so, but I can also sit there and go, but it doesn't mean that there has not been antagonism between the parties over the years or over decades
between Israel and
Gaza. And Gaza, right? The people of Gaza.
Right.
There's been constant antagonism, and neither side has handled it well all the time. So I think sometimes like Christian Zionists would hear me as a pastor say that and say that I'm not, they would go, well, you're not supporting Israel.
Right.
No, I'm just making a logical, reasonable, thought or
I wouldn't support
conclusion.
you if you were antagonizing people.
Yeah, it's just a reasonable conclusion.
Yeah.
Right. And so so
not everyone in Israel is religious either.
No.
So it's
majority or not.
Yeah.
Majority or not. And so I think that's where when the Christian Zionism gets really heavily tied to the secular state and really tied to the political kind of like alt-right wing or heavy right-wing side, I think that's where I have pause with being identified as a Christian Zionist.
Mm-hmm.
So
what is real, true Christian Zionism?
Well, and that's,
we talked about that. But...
Yeah. So how about this? Let me just state where I'm coming from.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, because I think, again, a lot of people are going to have different ideas and thoughts because, like, for example, we used 3 categories when we talked about these theologies in the first episode. We talked about replacement theology, fulfillment theology, and Christian Zionism. Some people will say fulfillment theology is replacement theology. Some people will say fulfillment theology is covenant theology. And some people will make distinctions between all of those things. And they'll say, well, there's replacement theology, covenant theology, fulfillment theology, dispensationalism, and Christian Zionism. Right? And all I'm saying is there's a lot of right. And that's most people are going, what?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different theories, theologies attached.
Forget it. Screw Israel. I don't care.
And so
it's too much.
Right. So here's just what I believe. And then you can put whatever label you want to on me at that point.
Okay.
All right. So I do believe that God has chosen Israel as his people. Okay. So I believe God has chosen Israel as his chosen people. And it's really not up to us if we like it or not. Like, it's his choosing. And so there were plenty of times throughout Israel's history that they sinned, that they were committing idolatry, and they actually turned away from God. They did not deserve his mercy. They did not deserve for them to still be his people. And yet God continued to give them mercy and still continued to treat them as his chosen people. Okay? Because they were his people. And even through the exile, though it was judgment, it was ultimately meant to be redemptive, calling his people Israel back to himself.
Wait, what? The exile went in the Bible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The exile in Scripture. So when they were exiled to Assyria and to Babylon.
Okay.
All right. And so to this day, Israel, I still will say Israel is God's chosen people. In this, and I don't mean that all Jews are saved. So let me be clear on that.
Okay.
I'm not saying, when I say chosen people, I'm not saying they are all saved. All right. I think that what we see about God's chosen people, Israel, is that even when in the Old Testament they were wandering and away from God, they were still his chosen people. And I think that still the same can be said today, because I think in Paul's language, especially in Romans 2 and Ephesians 2, he's very clear on the fact that not all Jews are Christians. Not all Jews are saved, all right? And that we're only saved by grace through faith. Paul's very clear on that. But that he still also refers to the fact that they are loved. That Israel as a people group are loved in a unique way by God. Okay? And that, so we know only Jews are saved by faith through Christ, but yet the people group still have a unique place in God's heart, the same way they always have. And so I think, so what I mean, and I really believe that what God means by the fact that they're his chosen people is that he's chosen them for specific purposes. Okay? Which obviously included the coming of the Messiah. And I do believe that it also includes that, hey, you are my people. Through you, like we read last week in Romans, came all of the prophets and the patriarchs and the promises. Through you came all those things. Through you came the Messiah. And at the end of the day, at the end of time, I will redeem Israel again. Where Paul says when the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled and then all Israel will be saved, that there will be a moment, a time where the Jewish people dispersed around the world will come back to know the Lord. And I'm not saying every one of them. I'm just saying I do believe there's going to be a great harvest of Jews coming back to the Lord.
I thought that part was not come back. I thought it was come back to Israel, to the land.
Yes.
And then
correct.
Come to the Lord.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And so let me and I will get to the land. All right. So I also believe that when we speak of Israel as the chosen people of God today, again, we're referring to the people group of Israel, not the secular state of Israel.
Right.
Okay. So we just
what I was
said
going to ask you. What is Israel, the word, defined as?
What do you mean?
Like when God says, "These are my people," what does that mean?
When he says, "These are my chosen people"?
Yes.
Okay.
What are his chosen people? Are they ethnically Jewish?
Ethnic Jews.
Okay.
Yeah. Those who are ethnically Jewish.
Just ethnic.
Correct.
Not religious.
Not religious.
Okay.
Ethnic Jews.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will have points on this later.
All right. Perfect. And then finally, I do believe God will bring the Jewish people back to their land and they will turn to the Messiah. And I don't know if we've read this passage fully, so I want to make sure we do, because I believe it gives, for me, the greatest sense of where I'm coming from. So in Ezekiel 36, verse 19, it says, "I dispersed them among the nations, and they were scattered among the countries. I judged them according to their conduct and actions." So this is the Lord speaking, and he's speaking about the fact that he has dispersed Israel, his people, among the nations, scattered among the countries, and this was during the exile. Okay?
Okay. This is Old Testament.
This is Old Testament that I'm reading. Okay. Yeah. He says, where it goes on to say, "These are the people of the Lord, yet they had to leave his land in exile."
Okay.
All right. Going down to verse 24. "For I will take you from the nations." So he's scattered them. Okay. Now he's saying, "I will take you from the nations and gather you from all the countries and will bring you into your own land. I will also sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. I will place my spirit within you and cause you to follow my statutes and carefully observe my ordinances." And this is this last part of the new heart, the new spirit, the heart of flesh, the spirit within you. All of that is new covenant language.
What does that mean?
Okay. That means language that is used to describe what happens when Jesus comes. And so Jesus has brought forth a new covenant.
Right. So how does that prove your point?
Okay. Because this is what I'm saying, is that so the fact that this is going to happen to his people once they're back in the land.
Okay.
And we've not seen this happen yet.
Right.
So that's my point.
That's the whole point.
That's the whole point. Is that so God has promised land, okay?
Yeah.
And we see it we read it, the covenant with Abram and Abraham in Genesis 12 and 15 and 17, the promise of the land. And then God's saying, "Hey, I'm going to bring you back to this land. And when I do, you will become believers in the Messiah. And you will be sprinkled clean, you will be made pure, you will be given a heart of flesh, a new heart will be given to you, and the Spirit of God will live inside of you."
So how is that supposed, like if you were projecting what that would look like, what is that going to look like?
For me, it looks like ethnic Israel, okay, being gathered back to the land of Canaan that was promised to them in the Abrahamic covenant.
Okay.
And then them turning to know the Lord.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through how?
And I'll leave this up to great interpretation. It seems that they'll be given the land, and they're coming back to the land, and maybe they see that the fact that that this is all aligned with the promises that have been spoken to them, and
all of them will.
I'm not saying every individual will be saved.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to make that jump. Okay, but I'm saying that there's going to be a large gathering of ethnic Israel, of ethnic Jews coming to know the Lord. So that's my take. Okay. So those are kind of like, so, my points in a nutshell,
right,
of like what I believe. You can label me Christian Zionist. You can label me whatever. Okay. Just that ethnic Israel has been God's chosen people.
Mm-hmm.
They still are, because he still has purposes and plans for them. Not only, today, but up until the fulfillment of time, and that he has promised them land. And coming back to that land is somehow connected to their coming to know Jesus as their Messiah.